My name is Era, and I'm the host of the Tamil Creator Podcast. I chat with creators from all over the world to share their stories and discuss hot topics in a way that I hope inspires, educates, and entertains you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Tamil Creator. I'm your host, and today I'm going to be chatting with actually a childhood friend, both my younger sister and brother, Thinesa, aka Thinesa Sri. And she's represented Team Canada on the indoor national team for volleyball. And she's currently on the Pro Beach Tour based in LA. So lucky. She's also a fashion model for 30 plus clients in ads and runways, including Wilson and Shea Moisture. And she's also more recently a huge UFC fan. And she also grew up in Scarborough. What? So welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, Tin.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for being really patient in having me. I know it took a while for us to get this going, but we're here.
That's what happens. The bigger the stars you chase, the longer it takes to get the interview. So I got it. So Tin, why don't you tell, I guess everyone, in terms of your upbringing, I mean, I guess I just met you. You kind of told me about how you grew up with my brother and sister and growing up in Scarborough. So tell us about that. Like, what was that like?
Growing up, pretty similar to everybody else that had immigrant parents, immigrated really early. I think I was 2 or 3. And from the get-go, it was typical, like, my brothers were off doing whatever they wanted. I was at home and, just regular upbringing. I had a really close-knit family. We were super close to our cousins. We had family in Ottawa, but we would go there at least once a month. So yeah, definitely close-knitted family and regular childhood. I grew up in sports. My oldest brother played sports. He actually represented Team Canada as well on the cricket tour. So he kind of, burned out a little bit and took studies to a whole new level. And I kind of went the other way. I took my studies and my school and my athletics.
I got to ask, how did you pull off with Tamil parents? Number 1, moving from Toronto to LA. Number 2, playing professional beach volleyball. And then number 3, the modeling thing. Forget like those things separately, but you somehow pulled off all 3 together.
Honestly, I don't even know where to start with that question. This is like years in the making, like years and years and years. It isn't just like an overnight process. Like I'm gonna write a biography one day. There's people that want to write that, documentary, whatever the case is, because like I said, it isn't something that happened overnight. First, how did I even start playing volleyball? I luckily just got thrown into it. It wasn't something that was on my radar. I was playing basketball, and I actually was playing basketball at an elite level, by the time I was in high school. So, that was kind of my priority. And I was playing everything. I was in track, I was in soccer. I was just an athletic kid. My dad was super athletic. My mom was super athletic, which doesn't happen with a Sri Lankan parent. The mom usually doesn't do much, but she was athletic as well. She ran a little bit of track. And she tells me that every day. That's where, my skills come from. And it, boggles my dad like crazy, or bothers him. But yeah, so I was playing it all, doing it all. And then the teacher at my school, or actually the principal now, he had said, there's a volleyball league starting and I'm head coaching it, swing by. At this point, I had never played volleyball. And I think I was in the 7th grade. I was. And I just went to, one of the sessions, and I actually lied to my parents, and that's kind of embarrassed to say, but I don't even know if they know it yet, but I'm going to tell them because I think it's hilarious now. But I had to tell them like, hey, I have an extra, I have a, curricular activity after school. And can I just go to that? And I don't know, they probably thought it was library or chess club or, something really nerdy. So they allowed it. And I went to this volleyball camp or, tryout essentially, which I didn't know was a tryout. And I think he just saw that I was athletic. I was really bad at volleyball because I've never picked up a volleyball before. So I think he just saw that I was athletic and he had a vision for me. And that coach literally changed my life because that was the coach I stayed with until I graduated school, high school. So that's literally how I fell into it. So, to answer your question with how I got away with it, at the beginning, it was a lie, like, oh, this, I'm just going to this club, that club. And it's crazy to think about. But then once I started getting good enough, I got recruited to play in the club, the club circuit. So we had 4 tournaments a year, and, we couldn't really fund it at that time because, my parents were immigrant parents. They could only, afford to pay for the basics. And My mom wasn't working because she was home making sure that, her 3 kids were studying and taken care of. So we had to fundraise a little bit, and that's how I got away with paying for it. As a team, I played with fellow people from Scarborough, not a lot of money. So we fundraised in front of stores, we fundraised in front of the clinics, we did a bunch of things, just to raise some money for those 4 tournaments. They did know about it at that point and they were okay with it. So at the beginning, it turned into that little thing, but they got really supportive right off the bat because it was really exciting for my dad, who was an athlete. He did play volleyball in Sri Lanka, and he enjoyed the whole process. It just got harder as it goes along.
So you had an unfair advantage. You're like Andrew Wiggins. I think both his parents were like athletes, and then he's like a really good athlete, obviously.
Yeah.
So you had that unfair advantage in the Tamil community.
Yeah.
Are you tall? Like, how tall are you?
Okay, so I love to say I'm tall because I think I am, but in the international volleyball circuit, if you Google it, I'm average. If anything, I'm a little below average, but I'm 5'11".
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's tall. That's tall, especially for a Tamil female. That's really tall. So in that world, everyone thinks I'm, giant. And they always say, oh, of course you play sports. Like, you're tall. And I'm like, you guys don't understand. Like, I'm a defender in volleyball right now. I play the defense position, which in volleyball, as we don't block. So you put the tall girls, like my defending partners are usually 6'4",
Oh, wow.
on the international circuit. That's, you look at like the Russian national team, they have 2 girls who are 7 feet. You have girls on the Chinese national team who are 6'6", 6'7". That's like, one of the taller ones, but that's what the peak is.
So since you're like on the short end on kind of the just volleyball height thing, how do you make up for it? Like, what's your way of
honestly, you got to use a bit of your brain, of course. Like, you have to outplay them, and the other thing is my defense. It's a whole new level. Like, I can match up my service seat to anyone in this world. And, defensively, I just have to be that much better. And, that way I have the advantage there. But I am considered, an average to taller defender. People of my height usually go and block, but I think I'm just too short for the blocking position. But because of ball control, and I played a position in indoor that was easily transition for beach, it helps me on my defensive game. So that's how I get away with it, because I'm a defender who can also attack and who can also do the other skills because of my indoor career.
So you made that transition from like basketball to volleyball.
Basketball, very small. Like, I had to give up basketball real early because I made the national team really early for volleyball.
Got it. I was gonna say, so like you never you don't ever feel like you left something behind because you got so good at volleyball so quickly that I guess you never were like, what
honestly, the reason it was such an easy decision is because basketball's really contact. So playing that, I always felt like I didn't have that like killer instinct of like beating a girl up or, shoving a girl. Like, I just didn't have that mentality to go up against these girls who like grew up, just fighting for their lives or whatever the case was. I just never had that like LeBron. I just didn't have that drive, the energy of like dashing past them. So I like the barrier of the net, So I actually chose that. I gave it up because I knew I didn't have longevity in that sport. I think, even though I was doing well, I knew it was a contact sport. So if I was that much contact at that early age, I knew it wasn't the path for me. So it was an easy decision at that point.
But you said you were also elite, or you're playing basketball at an elite level, I guess, at that age. When you say elite, like, what does that mean? Like, how do you quantify that?
I was representing Ontario, and I was representing our region of Toronto and higher. So that's considered elite. You're training 5 days a week. I just couldn't do both. And
so your brother also represented Team Canada in, you said,
cricket, he played cricket.
Gotta find out what your parents gave you guys. Okay.
I know, right? It's crazy, but I honestly think it's because my mom had the same mentality as me. She wanted to play in sports so badly, and my dad was a superstar athlete. Like, he played cricket, he played volleyball, and he was a pretty stud athlete. So it's awesome to see.
So you said you had 2 siblings. So you had a brother. Who was the other sibling?
I have another older brother.
Oh, you have another older brother, and did he play sports?
He's the one that plays cricket. The oldest. The cricket one. The second one's the one we talked about earlier that you might know.
Oh, I see. Okay, got it.
Yeah, so it's my oldest brother that was the cricket player, and then my middle brother. So there's 3 of us. My oldest brother is the cricket athlete, but then decided to pursue a little bit more into the athletic world, student, role. And then my middle brother, he's just smart. He beat us all in that.
Got it. This episode is sponsored by nobody. That's right, nobody. So if you could be kind enough to hit that subscribe button, that would mean a lot to me. Before I continue further, I got to give a shout out to my sister, because Tin and I guess my sister were really good friends, or still good friends,
Yes.
and also my brother Deep. So
Hi
my brother,
guys.
because my brother listens to this podcast regularly, Deep fan.
Oh,
So
well, you can thank him and his sister because that's mainly the reason I'm here. I've been asked to do so many podcasts, but this one was an easy yes, just because you had me when you said I'm Shagana's brother.
perfect. Thank you guys. So yeah, we were talking about kind of, you playing basketball, gave it up, you got to be very elite at volleyball, you're at York, and then you kind of, represent Team Canada. So how do you go from that? So you're really good already. Were you thinking, okay, is there a future in like playing this sport professionally, or did you think of maybe I'll do like some kind of regular job because I don't know if I could make a living doing
Yeah.
this? Like, what was your thinking process like at that point?
So going back to my parents, like it was always student athlete. So student comes first.
Mm.
So if my studies went down, it was like volleyball's done, volleyball's cut. So I had to always make sure I had an educational background. That's, why I went to York and I didn't end up going somewhere else for just sports. That was a huge decision in my life. Like, do I take, a full scholarship and go down somewhere, where everything's paid for, or do I actually focus on my studies a little bit and do both? And that was a huge decision in, my whole family's life. So, it took us months to decide that. But the dream is, get a scholarship, get a full ride so you don't have to pay for your studies, get an education. And then that's the dream. As a volleyball player, as an athlete, that's the dream. That's every basketball player's dream, get the full ride, go play pro, get recruited into the big league. So that's kind of like what it was already kind of built in for me to do. So I just had a path to follow at that point. And because I got so good, that path was always available.
And then like, how did you know, like, I guess, was it just a logical step to start playing in the pro beach tour? Was that?
No. I mean, beach, that's a whole new like section now. That's a whole new goal of mine. But it starts with, just representing your city, and then you represent your state. You get recruited to try out for the national team because you did state. So like they see you, that's how the big dogs will see you. So, one by one, you get recruited to higher levels. And then pro, you can get an agent and, go overseas. There's lots of ways to do it. You send your tapes, they find you, they, offer you scholarships or, contracts. And then for beach, for me, I had done everything I needed to do for indoor. I represented Team Canada, and that's the highest level you can get into. I competed, in Puerto Rico. I did a lot of things, in my indoor dreams that I was like, I don't really know what else, there's left for me. And our indoor national team hadn't made the Olympics in years and years and years. And I was just like, it's not in the making. And, my, prime volleyball career to do this. So I decided, why not be a dual athlete? Like, I want to be the first, to be able to represent both maybe and do it like, the highest of levels, and, not the first per se, but one to do it good, one of the first to do it really well and be a ranked athlete in both. And that's kind of where I'm at right now and what I'm facing now.
And so with pro beach, I think it's you played with twos, right? There's you and somebody
Pro
else.
beaches too.
And so how did you pick your partner? Was it like already selected for you, or did you actually like have to choose each other?
It works a little bit of both. So for what I'm playing in right now, I'm playing the AVP Tour, which is the American League. It's like the NBA for volleyball here. And for that, you can play with anyone, anytime. It's just a ranking system. So if you're ranked high, with your partner, you put your points together, and you can play with a different person each tournament. I've played with the same person. She played at Florida State. She's unbelievable. She touches like, she can dunk easily, and she's a female, which is crazy impressive. But she's unbelievable. So shout out to Mercedes, Mercedes Bond from Florida State. But yeah, so AVP, you can, essentially play with anyone, anytime. There's no rules. Like I said, it's just a ranking system. For the World Tour, you have to play with someone who's Canadian.
Oh,
so
I see.
But they don't necessarily have to be part of the Canadian national team. There's no such thing as country quota anymore. Before, there used to be a quota. So like a certain amount of teams can only go, so we'll send our top teams. Now you just go and qualify. The days before the tournament, you go and qualify, and if you qualify to the main draw, it's called, usually each tournament will have like top 16, top 24, top 32, and you go and compete in that. But for that, when you represent Canada, they have to be Canadian. For the AVP, they have to be from America or living in America.
And for beach volleyball, like I know with a lot of women's sports, there's, in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of discussion with like, the women's soccer team, the US, or I think Canada's hockey team with females, and I think even the soccer team, with kind of equality in pay between the two. So with like women's beach volleyball and the pro tour, just like whether it's global or like in the US,
Yeah.
is that like an issue, or like do you think that like the pay or the compensation
Yeah.
is fair?
I'm so glad you brought that up because this is something that, you know, nobody knows. But women's, so not just women's, but beach volleyball is the only sport in the world where women and men pay is the same.
Oh, interesting.
So like when we go to a tournament, so there was a tournament in Switzerland this past weekend, the purse for the men and the women, whether it's 150K for the tournament or whatever the case is, it's the exact same for the women. So I really like, it's such a focus to put out there for that because nobody knows that. And they're just so focused on our uniforms and, and everything else. And it's like, come on, like this is the only sport, it's the first sold sport in the Olympics with, 100-meter dash and track and field. Those are always the first to go. But, our pay is, that's something everyone needs to know. Like our pay is the same, which is crazy to think about.
What was the comment you said about your uniform though? What's the issue there?
Well, everyone always talks about us wearing bikinis and wearing,
I see.
And fixing our uniforms, and they're just so focused, and that's why our, ticket sales go on. That's what everyone talks about, but they don't realize like, the work that's being put in and what we're getting is the same as the men. So let's focus more on how there's equality in pay and not, anything else.
And like obviously how much you make, or like I guess your livelihood depends on how good you are and you and your partner are.
Of course, yeah.
And like, what would you say has been like your best finishes, I guess, in the sport, like in any tournaments or competitions?
Winning nationals was probably the best thing to ever happen to me. I remember that like it was yesterday. It was a couple years ago, and it doesn't go away no matter how many years go by. I think that's going to be a memory I remember for the rest of my life. And to answer your question about the pay and how well you do, that's for sure. The better you are, the more opportunities you have, of course. But there's lots of other ways to kind of, make money in the sport as well, and just being an athlete.
Got it. And like, what are some other ways? Is it like sponsorship or like other?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Sponsorships is like, if you can't get a contract and you're playing, tour by tour or, tournament by tournament. And if you don't win this tournament, there goes, some pay. So you're paying to get to that tournament, but now are you getting the money back to compensate? So yeah, sponsorships are huge. And it's kind of, you got to be good enough for sponsorships, because of course sponsors pay you to do this and they want to make sure there's an audience behind it, and not, so it's hard to get sponsorships for people who aren't at the top tier, but there's so many available that someone will find you. And, if you work hard enough, you can go and find them yourself, just like, Instagram and all those other ways of monetizing your money. But sponsorships for sure. There's ways to get salaries, from, whether it's your contract or whatnot. And then like we talked about prize money, like you could be, just an elite athlete. So not a pro athlete yet, but an elite athlete. And there's tournaments for cash prize. So it's called prize money every weekend, out here. So you can win essentially $1,000 every weekend if you go to these tournaments, and they're not far. There's a lot local ones. There's some in Florida, which is just a small plane, like flight away, a couple hours. So definitely lots of, ways to make it. There's appearance fees. So just for showing up at, certain events or certain communities, you can get money off of that. And then, and coaching is a huge part of my life. I coach all the time, and I coach full time essentially almost. So my way of giving back to the community, but it's also a way to make money.
And obviously, like you hit on this, you're an elite athlete, and it's almost like, people look at a doctor where, doctors get paid a lot of money for kind of this short period of time that they actually do, say like a surgery or whatever they're doing. So it's like when you play a tournament for like, maybe it's a weekend tournament, but there's a lot of work behind the scenes to prep your body, work with your teammates.
Of course,
all that
like
good
LeBron
stuff.
Talks about it takes him $1 million
as a year. I was going to bring that up. There you go.
know?
So the question for you is, what is your, like, you talked about playing the tournaments, your coaching, your modeling. So how do you fit in like the preparation part of like, the training or like the practicing? Like, what does that look like from a schedule point of view?
Schedule point of view, I mean, it's literally a 9 to 5. It just starts earlier in the day. So mine is essentially a 6 to 2. Every day I'm up at 6 o'clock, maybe a little bit before. I'm at the beach by 7 o'clock. Train 2 to 3 hours depending on the day. Earlier on in the week, we train a little longer, and then
Sorry, who are you training with? Like, you have a coach and like?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a coach. I've worked with a couple of different coaches. And, we have set practices with my partner and I, and then on, twice a week, we have scrimmages scheduled up. Scrimmages are just games that don't count for anything, but it's to work your training. So, for the first couple hours, first hour, you might just do, team things where you're working on one side and they're working on their own with their coach. And then you just play games, and then your coaches kind of just coach you from there. So it's just like, just like a team would scrimmage again, like preseason with the pros, how they would do that. We would have that preseason before tournaments, big tournaments.
How about like nutrition? Do you have like anybody dedicated to like the nutrition side of things, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have to go through nutrition and stuff, but it's not as, when I was younger, I used to go to classes for it. Team Canada had, nutrition twice a month, and now we're in the stage of where we have a therapist who kind of looks at all the things that we take to make sure, it's good for us, it's not on the ban list, and all the logistics behind it. But for the most part, we now, we've endured it so many hours that we know ourselves. Like, shopping with me is not fun for any of my family members and friends because I'm a label reader. And once you become a label reader, it's the worst because you see everything in the market. But you learn to, educate the ones that don't know so much about it. And a lot of people do ask me about those things. So I'm grateful to have gone through that.
Did you know that every time you left a 5 out of 5 review for this podcast, a Tamil parent lets their child pursue a career in the creative arts? Okay, that's probably not true, but if there's a chance that it is, do you really want to jinx it? Leave a review. Do it for the young creative in you. I know it's sports as well. Like there's I think the trend has been around for a while, but like the mental side of like, I know some folks have like, basketball players, football players, like Russell Wilson. I think he has like a therapist strictly for like, I forgot what he called it, but it's like just about like cultivating like a winning mindset of getting over defeats and things like that. Do you have anything like that?
I mean, I definitely, we have to watch modules and do things. Beach volleyball is a lot more, not because those things are all team-based. So you have a team running that and giving you that. Beach volleyball is very, very individual-based. Like you create your own team. So, now we have to go pay a psychiatrist. We have to go pay a psychologist, a sports psychologist, whatever the case is, Sometimes our program, feeds it to us, but that's only, once in a while. But, it's more of self-figuring out. But we do have modules that we have to go through and look through. And, we do a lot of meditation work, and we've been going through that with our coach, with our, our team and such, but not as intense as those guys, but definitely there's levels to it. And we definitely have to do a lot of that. And we do a lot of, yoga just to calm our bodies down because, we're constantly like breaking it. So we got to calm it down and kind of release tension a little bit too.
Got it. Well, like now on the flip side, so we talked a lot about your, the athlete side of things. So now you're not just an athlete, you're also a model. So how did that opportunity come along?
It's crazy because I think moving to LA made it become more of a huge branch of income and also like a whole new lifestyle for me because it was never a huge thing before. It was always just here and there doing little things and hey, this is fun. My best friend was a model. So I was like, oh, this is fun, joined her on a couple things. But once I moved to LA, I don't know what it is, but this look is so unique to them. And I don't understand it because I'm like in Toronto, we have the whole melting pot of all the cultures and, I think with LA, you only have like 5 streams of culture out here and it's crazy to see, but somehow I blew up in terms of popularity. I'm labeled as culturally ambiguous. So I get a lot of bookings under that. Like I can go under being Latina, I can go under being, Asian, I could be under Pacific Islander. There's a lot I can go under, African American. There's so much I can go under and Indian. So it's just easy for them to throw me into those roles. And I think at first I was telling myself, like, remember, you're here for volleyball. You're not here for anything else. But, money calls and so does adventure. And so does, it's just fun to do something different. And it's not stressful for me, because volleyball is a stressor, sometimes. And you just want to, sometimes it's fun to be good at something that you didn't train to do.
You said it was adventure. Like, do you get to travel or like, do you get
sometimes I get to travel like so many places just to go shoot. I've been to Hawaii to shoot, which is awesome. And I can't say no to that. So
you're living your best life.
If it doesn't interfere with my volleyball schedule, I say yes right away. But like I said, it gets really, it was really trying to pull me in right when I moved here. And I had to be like, oh my God, wait, stop this. Like you haven't trained in 3 days. You need to figure out your priorities. And it's tough because I'm so, like I said, I'm doing so well in that. It's tough to kind of say no. It's like that, it's like the green devil over here, just being like, here. And I can't do that, when I'm 50, but neither can I with volleyball. So it's a constant battle.
So you're living your best life there. You're getting to travel, getting
That's
paid
what
to travel
everyone
for.
says. But I remember I only showcase the good. There's so much bad I
Yeah.
don't want to do with my family. That's the biggest negative. My cute nephew and nieces are growing up and I don't get to see that. And it's really tough being here by yourself without family when I grew up with such a close-knit family.
Do you plan on staying in LA for a very long time, or do you ever plans to kind of move back to Toronto eventually?
I will go wherever my nephew is. That's how I see it right now. But no, I'm here for, I have a lot of opportunities. My life is really set here in terms of, being successful, and literally, like you said, living my best life, actually living out my best life and like my potential. So I think, volleyball isn't something I can do when I'm 40. So I definitely see myself here short term. I've already been here full time since 2020. 2019, I was part time. So it's already been almost 3 years, more than 2 years full time and another year of part time. So I'm probably going to be here another 2 years until the next Olympic cycle, because that's what I'm striving towards, which is in 2024 in Paris.
Wait, so you're aiming to like represent Team Canada?
Of course, yeah. So that's the goal right now.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, of course. That'd be amazing, of course. But that's the goal, to be able to do it and be. And so I'm going to be here for short term for 2 years is the plan, and then we'll see where life takes me then. But I do plan to be close to family somehow. So whether it's walking towards them or plane ticket away, whatever the case is, I need to be close.
I don't know why I thought of the Drake like that line. It's like I'm here for a good time, not a long time. But hopefully we'll see.
That's a good way, yeah, for sure.
So in terms of like, yeah, you kind of just you touched on it a bit, but like you have the green devil, as you called it, with modeling and like the adventure, the money, the less stress on one side, and obviously you have what you came for, which is being an elite athlete, volleyball, represent Team Canada, play on the pro tour. What's your like ideal mix between the two? Like, is it 50-50 or is it?
Yeah, it's what it is right now.
Okay.
Not what it was maybe a couple months ago, but right now it's 80% volleyball, 20%, modeling, because, growing up, you have all those stereotypes of modeling and what it's supposed to be like, super girly, super like, strung up on yourself. And I hate being associated with being a model when I'm a professional athlete. So being called a model, I used to hate it, and then I just learned to, appreciate it a little bit more, because not everyone can do it. Everyone, especially being in LA, they're living out of their cars trying to be a model. They're trying, they're, barely making it, living in these, really small places, studios for like 2,200, trying to make it become a model. And it just came up to me. So I have to, be grateful and appreciative of how it just came up to me. And, I'm learning to kind of be like, yes, I'm a model, as well as an athlete.
I noticed that you're also on platforms like I think I talked about Millions, where you sell merch and personalized videos.
Yeah.
Is that like this other like I guess another way you're kind of looking to diversify your income, or is that like part of that 20%?
For sure. Well, you know what? So Millions, shout out to Millions. Thank you for recruiting me onto your platform. One of the co-creators of that is Bruce Buffer, who is a dear friend of mine. So he reached out to me and asked me to join Millions. It's been nothing but positive vibes since I joined. It's an amazing way for your fans to follow your journey, for people who, your family, your friends, just to follow your journey and be a part of it. Because I stream things on there, like my games, I stream, even interviews I do, so I stream a lot of things on there. And then, like you said, my merch is on there. So a lot of, whether my family or friends want to support my matches, they're always there and they can buy that. And like I said, tag along when I can't really update them on everything else.
So have you ever thought of like, maybe this is a question you heard of before, but like with NFTs at all? Like, I know like it's hitting every vertical, musicians, athletes, etc. Like, is that something you're looking at or exploring?
Sorry, I missed that first part.
Oh, sorry, NFTs.
Oh, no, I haven't been going into there yet. I have been approached to do that. I'm going to stay in this world for now.
When you left Toronto like 4 years ago to play pro volleyball, how confident were you that you were making the right choice? Did you have any kind of doubt? Did you have any of those voices from maybe friends, family that kind of were like, sure you want to do this? Money can be hard to come by, but here is a $100 opportunity for you. Join my free newsletter for free exclusive content and a free chance to win $100 when I hold special draws. Did I mention that it's free?
Yeah, I mean, it was a risk for sure. But I don't think it would have ever been the negative risk. I consider there's risks that are positive, risk, even if they don't work out well. I think what I just kept telling myself, and, I kept telling my family, who was like, you know what, you did everything in indoor. Why do you need more? Like, you represented Canada. Like, what else is there? Like, they asked those same questions, and it all went back to, I can only do this now. I don't want to be in 5 years regretting this and being like, oh, what if, like what you said with basketball, like basketball, I left and I was content. I didn't even think about it until you just mentioned it, so that's how, didn't even come to my mind ever. But with volleyball, there's always been that like, what if, or what can I do with this, and what's there to do more? And the support came real quick, especially my dad, who's a super athlete, and he was just like, yes, you can wait. You can wait to have kids. You can wait to do all that other stuff. Like, this is the now. And I was at my prime, and it was different because beach is a whole new circuit. It's a whole new sport essentially, because you're playing on sand now, and you're playing in 100-degree weather. You're playing in, sun blaring in your eyes. There's wind involved. There's a lot of variables, and like a lot of skill is different. Like indoor game is very power based, and the beach game is not as much power based in the women's side. So there's a lot. It's a whole different game. So there was a lot of risk, but like I said, the only thing I kept telling myself is, if my family supported me, if my friends supported me, and like, that's all that I needed to be like, let me just try this. And at first it was just, let me try this for a couple of months. That's why I did it part-time. So the risk wasn't as big. I was only here for a month. I went back home. I was here for another 2 months. I went back home. And then at one point I was like, hey, you know what? Like I can I could do this longer. I could do this. And then it became full-time. And then it became, the sponsors came in, and all that stuff. So then I did it gradually, and I did it, I think, very, I want to say smart. But I definitely did it cautiously, but also with the mindset that, I knew I was going to succeed in at least to a level where it would be okay to do.
What does success look like for you in the next 3 years? I know representing Team Canada is one of them, but like
in the
what
Olympics,
else?
yeah, I mean, definitely just representing Team Canada more on the higher tour countries. So like it works by stars, and I want to represent them in the, the highest of stars, and just get on tour full time doing that. That would be definitely a short-term goal. And then the long-term goal in 2-3 years would be the Olympics, and going from there. But that's definitely on the radar for sure.
And then having your nephew live with you is another one.
I mean, I would love to steal him and bring him to the beach every day. He would love it. Every time I call him, he's like, can I come to the beach with you? And it breaks my heart and he knows I'm in the car. So he'll be like, just turn around. He's like 3, tell him to turn around the car because he knows I'm not coming to him. But it breaks my heart every time. But all I can think about is, okay, I'm going to come home, visit him. And, once I get on that podium, I can shout him out.
Yeah, for sure. What's been like a failure or learning lesson that you've experienced in like the last few years? And what did you learn from that failure?
Oh my gosh, there's so many, everyone sees me, and like you said, they see the best life and they see everything great, because we only talk about the best things, but there's so many things that, like I wanted to quit. I'm not worth it. I've already done everything. Why am I putting myself through this? But I think the biggest mind failure, battle for me was, I was at the top of the game in indoor. I was the best athlete out of my recruiting class out of Canada going, into university. I was, a top level athlete. I was the top, not just a top, and being the best at indoor, and then going to something like beach where I can't do anything I used to do in indoor was the most frustrating. And I mean, it still is, it's a learning battle still. And I think that's been the most frustrating thing for me, because it's a mental battle. And those are, essentially the toughest things to battle with, is it ever going to come? It's called sand legs, are they ever going to come? Am I going to be able to move as well as I do in indoor? And there's been so many times where I quit. And literally just like 2 weeks ago, my partner came up to me and said the same thing, like, Tin, like, how many more years am I going to give this? Like, I don't know how many more years it's worth it. Like, because she was one of the best to do it in her position too. So it's really frustrating for someone who's never touched beach. I haven't even, like, in Canada, we don't even have beaches, like we have a few, we all go to the same ones. So it's really hard to go, come to the States here where, people in their 50s are still crushing it because there's sand in their backyard. The whole coast of California plays volleyball. Everyone and their mom plays, volleyball. There's people on the tour who never played club, who never represented their country like I did, and are still crushing my butt, So really tough. It's really tough to see that. And then I think the winning thing that helped me was, just telling myself it's a whole new sport. You're learning this from scratch, but let your mind and your wiseness from volleyball take over, because not everyone has that. Like that wasn't going away, So that's the biggest mental failure back and forth, losing to people who aren't that good, essentially what you would see in indoor, and then coming to the beach and they kick your butt.
So I didn't know you were the top athlete or top
Yeah, I was
volleyball.
the number one recruit out of Canada when we were graduating.
So what position did he play? Were you in tackle?
I played left side.
Left side. Is that a
Yeah,
tackle?
power left side.
So you had hops.
Yes.
Okay. Can you dunk?
I did. I mean, I that's another thing. I was short, compared to international athletes. So I had to make up for it somewhere besides just my brain.
Can you dunk?
I can, but a tennis ball. I don't know if it's my Sri Lankan Tamil genes, but I don't have very big hands. So like even my shoe size, everyone on my team has size 12 and 11, and I'm a men's 8.5, women's 9.5, so I don't have the large palm to actually hold the ball, but a tennis ball easily, yeah.
Oh wow, impressive.
Yeah. My partner can dunk it with the basketball. Like her palm is like huge.
Oh wow. Yeah, volleyball players have crazy hops. I watch some of the indoor highlights, men's and women's, and
these guys have 50-inch verticals.
It's crazy. I sometimes I think the photo is fake. I was like, how can somebody jump that high?
No, there's so many. You should Google Lionel Marshall from Cuba. His vert is insane.
Wow.
Another guy there's so many. I can't even.
Tin, if you had a chance to go back in a time machine and sit down with 16-year-old yourself, 16-year-old Tin, what would you tell her?
Ooh, I've never gotten asked that question before. I mean, honestly, it would have to be do what makes you happy, but be smart about it. Because everyone always says, do what makes you happy. But in the end, is that going to build your career? Is that going to, help you live for the rest of your life? You can't just do what you're happy doing. You got to find something you're good at, because, it can become a career if you are good at something and you like it. So I think the main thing is do what makes you happy, but make sure it has longevity and it can give you, a future in it. And it's not just something you're doing for fun. And maybe, I would have touched beach a little bit more because I knew there was a future in, volleyball. And then I wouldn't be in this position where I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm so backtracked in this part of the sport,
Yeah, I think you made a good point there. I think a lot of people, I think so many people say follow your passion, follow this or that. But I think a lot of people want to skip not the hardship, but the necessary suffering to do well in something well enough, because there is a little bit of, not a little bit, there is some required suffering, that learning curve, like you said, you're trying to get your sand legs, but you're not going to skip that to be good at whatever you want to do, because you'll naturally like stuff that people say you'll be good at stuff that you like, but you also end up liking stuff that you end up becoming good at. So if you just put in the work, you'll end up being passionate about it over time. So
yeah, it's easy to just be like, I like this, let me do it. Then everyone would be doing it. You hear that all the time. If it was easy and success, an easy success rate, everyone would be doing it. There has to be something that differentiates you from the others, and that's the work that you said and the discipline you create.
Yeah, I think consistency is an underrated skill. So I definitely,
for sure. 10,000 hours. That's a real thing. Putting 10,000 hours is what creates a skill. So
yeah, it's like compound interest, but people talk about compound interest with money, but it also is with skills. If you do something over a long period of time, not just do it, but actually purposely, in sports, it's you have those regimented practices, the games and all that kind of build up your skills. If you do that for 5, 10, whatever, however long you can play for, you'll become amazing by the end of it. So
yeah.
So future looking. So in terms of your personal legacy, how would you want to be remembered by your friends and family?
Okay, what you touched upon, what I would tell my 16-year-old self, my legacy, find a passion, for people, because that can turn into a legacy. I want to make sure, I've been mentored by so many people, and I want to become that. And that's why I started coaching really early on. I was asked to coach, and I was like, I'm too young to coach, at 18 or 19, but you're never too young to coach. There's always some sort of coaching available. And I think that's what I want to be remembered as, being a student I was a student to the game and I learned it from scratch. It's not like I grew up, being born and blood into it. Yeah, my parents were athletic, but we never had a national team volleyball player, a lot of families out here, their parents are gurus of the sport. And I'm a student to the game, and I want to make sure my legacy shows that with my mentorship. And I want to make sure I'm giving back to my community and doing more podcasts like this and making sure I share, the wealth and my passion and making sure that, goes the whole 9 yards.
Got it. Well, that's a good way to segue into the last segment of the podcast. It's a speed run that I like to call Creator Confessions. So I'm going to basically just say a bunch of statements. You tell me the first thing that pops to mind. Ready?
Okay, you're going to have to speak a little louder, okay? Because I want to be on.
All right. Favorite Tamil food?
Wait, Tamil food?
Yes.
Oh my God, this is embarrassing. Rolls.
Good answer. Something that scares you?
Oh, centipede. That's embarrassing.
Insecurity that you have?
Being tall in the Tamil community.
Favorite TV show you're watching?
I don't watch a lot of TV, but Survivor.
A place you're itching to travel to?
A place I've been to?
No, you're itching to travel to.
Oh, the Great Barrier Reef in Australia.
A fellow Tamil creator that you want to give a shout out to?
Let's go to Showcase. She has her own podcast as well.
Favorite childhood memory?
Ooh, winning nationals as a kid.
By the way, Showcase was on my podcast too.
Hey, shout out, nice.
What do you like to do for fun outside of work? And for your work is volleyball and modeling, but what do you like to do?
I love to game. I know that's something a lot of people don't know unless you're close friends, but I'm a big Halo player and COD player.
There you go. Favorite film of all, or favorite movie of all time?
Of all time, Rocky 4 to be exact.
Why Rocky 4?
Drago, like the whole, remember I'm short compared to all these big girls. So it's a movie I watch all the time before movies and whatnot. Or before games, sorry.
What's a purchase you've made over the last few years that you splurged on, but you have no regret about it?
A pair of heels.
Pet peeve.
Bad drivers, but inconsistent drivers.
A person or celebrity that you look up to?
My dad. That's actually the truth.
I could tell. If you knew that you were going to die tomorrow, a regret that you would have?
Spending time with my family.
Celebrity whose life you'd want to experience for one day?
Ooh, Jeff Bezos.
A book you've read or a podcast you've listened to that's had an impact on you?
Alchemist.
It's like so many people say that. Interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, no way.
A belief, behavior, or habit that's improved your life?
Improved my life?
Yes.
Time management, for sure.
And finally, a piece of advice you want to give to your fellow aspiring Tamil creators out there?
Ooh, pursue your passions, because passion can become legacy, which what I'm trying to do. So put in that work, do what you can, do what you love, and the work will showcase in the results. So don't just say it, do it.
It's a good way to end the podcast. Tin, that was great. I feel like I got to learn a bit about now my brother and sister's childhood friend that I didn't know that they had.
Now you know why they're such good friends with me, maybe.
Yeah, I get it. So, I mean, thank you for kind of, jumping on and sharing kind of dropping all this knowledge and your experience. For someone listening that, is really inspired after hearing this episode, what is the best way for someone to reach out to you?
I'm not the best email responder, as, you can tell them. I'm really good with phone, and then Instagram. You can follow me at Tin in the House. I'm very active on there just because, I have a lot of people, wanting to know what I'm doing and my day-to-day activities. I have sponsors that I work with on there. So Instagram is a great way to keep up to date and also get, you can ask me anything on my Millions platform, so I can respond there as well. But Instagram is definitely the easiest, most convenient way.
Got it. And you said the next Olympic cycle is 2023, 2024?
2024. And then 2028 is actually in Los Angeles. So with my family's approval, I might just keep going because, volleyball is one of those sports that you could do forever. Like I said, Carrie Walsh did it until she was 45. So, and so did a lot of other people. She's not the one off.
So we're in 2022. I want to check in on Tin in 2024. Hopefully I think she'll be representing Team Canada. Let's just put it out there.
Thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate that. The good vibe. I appreciate.
Well, I have a daughter now, so my hope is I think she's exhibiting some athletic ability.
Oh my gosh, that's so sweet.
So I'm hoping it'll be cool if she sees a podcast episode like this, or other ones I do hopefully as well.
Of course, yeah.
So yeah, no, thank you for jumping on, and for those of you listening, appreciate you guys for listening, especially Shaggy and Deeps again for getting Tin to even agree to this interview. So appreciate you guys. So thanks for your time, and on to the next episode, guys.